There you go, you need a Wi-Fi person?
Oh, I've got that. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Ja, dames en heren, dit is een kleine audiotest. Test 1, 2, 3, 4.
Als ze zitten, dan kan ik het beste zien. Ja, zeker.
Ja. Hij mag gewoon hier ook.
In 1 minute. Waiting for the live stream. The 10 seconds. Dames en heren.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this press conference of the Joint Investigation Team, in short, the GIT. The GIT performs criminal investigation into the downing of flight MH17 on 17th of July 2014. The official languages of the press conferences are Dutch and English. In the GIT, Australia, Belgium, Malaysia, the Netherlands and Ukraine work closely together. This collaboration is intensive, constructive and focused on one common objective, which is finding out what happened and who is responsible for it. Today we will make a number of specific requests and will give you partial insight into the progress of the investigation. The speeches in this press conference will be given by the representative of GIT partners, Mr. Fred Westerbeke, Chief Public Prosecutor of the National Public Prosecution Service in the Netherlands and also coordinator of the Joint Investigation Team, Mr. Wilbert Paulussen, Head of the National Criminal Investigation Service of the Netherlands Police, and Ms. Jennifer Hurst, Commander of the Australian Federal Police. Next, there will be a short opportunity to ask questions, followed by one-to-one interviews with the representatives of the GIT countries, which are the people you see behind the table here. The presentations and the footage used will be made available to you after this meeting on the website of the GIT, the Dutch Public Prosecution Service and the police. Now, after having indicated this, I would like to give the floor to the Chief Public Prosecutor of the National Public Prosecutor Service, Mr. Fred Westerbeke. Ladies and gentlemen, today the GIT will inform you of part of the progress of the investigation within the framework of a press conference. Later on, I will explain why. We will also put forward a call for witnesses to come forward and we will ask a number of specific questions. But first of all, I would like to welcome all of the surviving relatives who are attending this meeting by means of a live stream connection. All GIT countries are present today at this meeting. I extend a special welcome to Mohammed Hanafiya bin Zakaria and Dato Mod Zakaria bin Ahmad from Malaysia, Mrs. Jennifer Hurst from Australia, and the gentlemen Vasil Ritschak and Dimitri Storosuk from Ukraine, and from Belgium, Frederik van Leeuw and Stanny de Vlieger. On the 28th of September, the JIT extensively presented the first results of the criminal investigation to the downing of flight MH17 on the 17th of July 2014. Our main conclusion was that based on the criminal investigation, it can be concluded that MH17 was shot down on the 17th of July 2014 by a Buk missile from the 9M38 series, and it was fired from a farm field near Pervomaisk. At the time, this area was under the control of pro-Russian separatists. The presentation furthermore demonstrated that a missile from the 9M38 series was fired by a Baktila. That Baktila was transported from the territory of the Russian Federation and was returned to that territory of the Russian Federation afterwards. The questions that everyone wants answered from day one are: why was flight MH17 shot down? And who are responsible for this appalling act? I cannot give you the answer to these specific questions today. We will, however, present some investigation results. It may be clear that the criminal investigation is a large and complicated investigation. Independence, carefulness and professionalism are paramount. We are steadily progressing. The investigation has been going on for almost 4 years and is still of the highest priority. Every day, dozens of detectives, public prosecutors and other experts from various countries are working on the investigation and collaborating to fact-finding. And we will continue to do so until we are done. That is not an easy feat, and the circumstances remain difficult. Part of the information required, which is mostly of foreign military origin, is classified. Getting this information takes time, consequently. And the investigation area in eastern Ukraine is still inaccessible to our investigation team. Fortunately, a lot of telecom data are still available in the Ukraine. That is why the permanent presence of a part of the investigation team in Kiev and the cooperation with our partners over there is all the more important. Nevertheless, in the past period, a lot of progress has been made, including identifying those directly involved. On the 28th of September 2016, we announced that there was a group of about 100 persons that could be linked in some way or another to the downing of MH17. And we've booked a lot of progress in this respect. By now, the role of the major part of them has become a lot clearer. However, it may damage the investigation and the final legal proceedings if we make clear to those responsible and the other parties involved how much we know exactly. Therefore, you will understand that the courtroom is preeminently the place where the Public Prosecution Service will comment on the accusation of and the burden of proof against individual persons. It is then up to the court to pass judgment. I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Wilbert Paulussen, Head of the National Criminal Investigation Service of the Netherlands Police. Among other matters, he will inform you about an important conclusion in the investigation with regard to the Baktela and explain which findings led to that conclusion of the GIT. Mr. Paulussen. Ladies and gentlemen, as Mr. Westerbeker just explained, I will discuss additional investigation results that relate to the Baktila by which MH17 was shot down on the 17th of July 2014. The GIT has scrutinized all the available images of the Baktila of 17 and 18 July 2014, and as such we were able to establish that this Baktila has a lot of unique features. Based on these specific features, the GIT was able to retrieve a type of fingerprint from this Baktila. After an extensive and labor-intensive comparative investigation in which many Baktilas were involved, the GIT has come to the conclusion that the Baktila by which MH17 was downed originated from the 53rd Anti-Aircraft Missile Brigade or the 53rd Brigade from Kursk in the Russian Federation. That 53rd Brigade is part of the Russian Armed Forces. In 2014, that 53rd Brigade consisted of 3 operational battalions. A few hundred people at least worked in the staff, support and operational units. An anti-aircraft brigade is aimed at defending the airspace against enemy targets. We realize that the investigation collective, Bellinclad, has already concluded the same and published it. We, as the GIT, have our own independent investigation, and the conclusions we draw from that investigation must be based on legal and convincing evidence which will stand in the courtroom. The collection thereof, of this evidence, and the validation thereof, must be done carefully, and it takes a lot of time. We are convinced that our findings confirm the conclusion that the bactilar that was used originated from the 53rd Brigade of the Russian Federation. You will now see the animation of our findings. It contains several images made along the way, the long way that this bactilar traveled on the 23rd, 24th and 25th of June 2014. The GIT, the images shot during the route allowed the GIT to compare these images to those of 17 and 18 July 2014 and the so-called fingerprint of the bactilar. Eventually this led to the match. A selection of the features that comprise this fingerprint is included in the animation, which we will show you now.
The Joint Investigation Team concludes the bactilar that shot down flight MH17 originated from the 53rd Anti-Aircraft Missile Brigade from Kursk in the Russian Federation. On this satellite image, you will see the home base of the 53rd Brigade in Mashala Zhukova, near the city of Kursk. The base consists of various areas with buildings for troops, workshops and ammunition storage. One of the parking lots of the 53rd Brigade shows several vehicles, including bactilars. On the 23rd of June 2014, a convoy of the 53rd Brigade left the base in a southerly direction. It was a large convoy consisting of almost 50 different vehicles, including 6 bactilars. During the convoy's journey, dozens of photos and videos were taken of the vehicles and posted on social media. The JIT has recorded license plates and other relevant characteristics of these vehicles in order to compare these shots with each other. In addition, all the environmental characteristics visible on the photos or videos of the places where the convoy passed by were analysed by the JIT. The recordings show objects along the way that exactly match objects in Google Street View. In this manner, every location was validated. Moreover, the recordings have been placed in chronological order. This is how the route of the convoy was reconstructed. The convoy was first videoed on the 23rd of June 2014. At the time, it was driving on the R298 towards Nikolskoye. Then the convoy is videoed further south in the city of Troitsky. It can clearly be seen the huge vehicles disrupt traffic and attract a lot of attention. This may explain why there is so much footage of the convoy on social media. Almost all vehicles in the convoy have vehicle number 2 as the first digit of the 3 digits on their side. The 2 signifies it comes from the 2nd Battalion. Of the 6 bactilars in the convoy, only 1 has a vehicle number starting with a 3. This means that this vehicle is part of the 3rd Battalion. Later on, we will get back to this particular vehicle. All vehicles are part of the 53rd Brigade. In the city of Stary Oskol, the convoy is frequently photographed and videoed. The collected images of this convoy helped the JIT establish the characteristics of the bactilars that were transported. On one of the video recordings, the right side of the bactilar in question can be clearly recognized. The convoy is then videoed a little north of Nyeznamovo while it is traveling south on the R188. Here, the left side of the bactilar in question can be clearly seen and recognized. In the evening of the 23rd of June, the convoy is videoed again. At that moment, the vehicles are on the Ulitsa Lenina in Khradish, driving in an easterly direction. About 175 kilometers have been covered since the convoy's departure from the base in Kursk. One day later, on the 24th of June 2014, the convoy is videoed during 5 minutes near the place Raskiviets. Further down the road, the convoy is captured in various places on video and photo in and near Alexeyevka. The last images of this convoy that the JIT hold are of the 25th of June 2014. The military vehicles travel westbound and passed south of the city of Miloreva on the R115. At this point, the convoy was about 25 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. The Baktila used to shoot down flight MH17 was recorded multiple times on the 17th and 18th July 2014, when it was transported in Ukraine on a red low-loader pulled by a Volvo truck with a white cabin. This was already shown by the Joint Investigation Team in September 2016. A large number of specific features of this Baktila can be seen on these photo and video recordings. The combination of these specific characteristics forms a so-called fingerprint of this Baktila, so that it can be compared with other Baktilas of the same type. The JIT has assessed and compared a large number of Baktila images. This concerned Baktilas that are used mostly by Ukraine and the Russian Federation. After extensive comparative investigation, the Joint Investigation Team concludes the fingerprint of the Baktila that shot down flight MH17 matches the fingerprint of one Baktila of the 53rd Brigade, and not to any other Baktila. We will now show 7 of these features. On the left side of the vehicle there are a cross in a circle as a center of gravity marking, a transport marker, below a white spot on the side skirt, and 2 small spots where normally there should be a vehicle number. On the right side you can also see a white marking on the side skirt. In addition, there is an opening in the rubber side skirt. And finally, the combination of the running wheels, where the second from last running wheel is the only one that has no spokes. A center of gravity marking is used to indicate the center point of the mass of a vehicle, which is important when the vehicle is being transported. These markings come in many shapes and sizes. We see the center of gravity marking on the images from Makivka and Donetsk in Ukraine, as well as on footage from Alexeyevka in Russia. A transport marking is placed on a vehicle when it is transported by train. This also occurs in different types and sizes. The center of gravity and transport marking are in exactly the same spot in all images. Furthermore, a white spot is visible on the rubber side skirt. This marking on the Baktila of the 53rd Brigade is visible on the footage from Donetsk in Ukraine and Nizhny in Russia. This image also shows part of a vehicle number, that is, a 3 and a 2. On the images from Ukraine, only a few stripes are visible on that spot. It is customary for vehicle numbers to be deleted or painted over if a Baktila is deployed operationally. The pieces that are still visible in Makivka fit exactly with the original number from the Russian Federation. The white spot, the transport marking, the center of gravity marking and the vehicle number are always placed in exactly the same position. This makes them unique for this Baktila. Various unique features of this Baktila are also visible on the right-hand side. Most striking is the combination of running wheels. For Tila vehicles, there are only 2 types of running wheels with spokes and running wheels without. In Staroskol in Russia, a recording was made of this Baktila. We clearly see that the second running wheel from the rear is the only one that has no spokes. Also in Torez, Ukraine, on the 17th of July 2014, the right side was videoed. The image has a high contrast due to the bright sun. As a result, the wheels themselves are not clearly visible. However, the shadows are typical for the different wheels. In this computer simulation, the sun is in the same position as during the recording of the visual material in Torez on the 17th of July. The shadow effect shows the difference between wheels with and without spokes. This shows that all the wheels of this Buck-Tilar are spoke wheels, with the exception of the second from the rear on the right side. The combination of running wheels of the Tilar from Starioscol and Torez is therefore the same. Then we see a white spot on the side skirt. This is probably also a transport marking. The last matching feature that we show you is an opening in the rubber side skirt. Side skirts are available in all shapes and colors. This opening is also identical in the photographs from Ukraine and those from the Russian Federation. And here too, this applies not only to the similarity itself, but also to the position of the opening compared to other features, such as the previously shown running wheels and the white marking on the skirt. On the basis of several characteristics, the JIT has made a fingerprint of the Buck-Tilar that shot down flight MH17. We have shown 7 of these. On the left you saw the transport marking, the center of gravity marking, the white spot on the side skirt. What is left of the vehicle number? On the right you saw the combination of running wheels, the second running wheel from the rear being the only one without spokes, the opening in the side skirt, a white marking. This fingerprint makes this Buck-Tilar unique. The JIT has assessed many Buck-Tilars that are in use mostly by Ukraine and by the Russian Federation. The JIT has observed the fingerprint of the Buck-Tilar that shot down flight MH17 only in one Buck-Tilar, and that is the one specific Buck-Tilar of the 53rd Brigade from the convoy that we showed you. The Joint Investigation Team concludes the Buck-Tilar that shot down flight MH17 originates from the 53rd Brigade from Kursk in the Russian Federation.
Okay.
All right. The conclusions regarding the involvement of the 53rd Brigade are supported for that matter by other findings such as witness testimony. As the GRT, we are determined to continue with collecting further evidence against the persons responsible for downing flight MH17, causing the death of 298 innocent people. By having established that the Buck-Tilar originated from the 53rd Brigade, we have taken another important step in the investigation. We are getting closer. So now is the time to step forward should you have any further information, to ask you to do so. The GIT therefore urgently asks anybody who can provide us with useful information to indeed step forward. We would like to know more about the deployment of the Buck-Tilar on 17 July 2014. We are looking for people that were directly or indirectly involved in the downing of MH17, but we're also thinking of individuals who were responsible for the operation that deployed the Buck-Tilar. We have 4 questions. Who was part of the team? What instructions were they given and by whom? Who was responsible for the operational deployment of this Buck-Tilar on 17 July 2014? And finally, who could provide us with more information about the procedures and persons responsible within this brigade? We are convinced that many people have this information available to them. They could be staff members of the 53rd Brigade, family members, friends, acquaintances, or even people that have nothing to do with this brigade. If you have the answers to these questions, if you know people that may have the answers to the questions, please contact the GIT. We emphasize that all information will be treated with the utmost confidentiality. If you go to our website, you can read how you can contact us in a safe and confidential manner. I thank you for your attention so far, and I would now like to give the floor to Jennifer Hurst, Commander of the Australian Federal Police.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you more about the type of missile that was used to shoot down MH17. As we know, it was a Buk missile from the 9M38 series. In parts of the plane wreckage, as well as in bodies of victims and also on the crash site, different parts of the type of missile were found. These parts were secured by the JIT and carefully examined by forensic experts. For example, examinations were conducted into the presence of explosive substances, the elemental composition of certain metal parts, and analysis of paints. Also, pieces of debris and parts found on the crash site were visually compared with reference material consisting of various Buk missiles available to the JIT. In addition, a missile was detonated in a controlled environment so that comparisons could also be made with parts of a detonated missile. All findings from this forensic investigation confirm the earlier conclusion of the JIT that flight MH17 was shot down by a 9M38 series Buk missile. I will now specifically talk about two parts of the NM38 series Buk missile called the venturi and casing. The venturi is the exhaust of the missile, and by casing we mean the shell of the missile engine. A venturi and a casing were found in eastern Ukraine. The JIT already showed you the venturi in September 2016. And you may have seen the casing in the safety board report. The JIT has no doubt the casing and venturi originate from a 9M38 series Buk missile. To complete the tactical investigation, we want to draw your attention to three specific characteristics of these two parts. The animation will highlight where these parts are located in the missile, and the JIT also has a few questions which I'll come back to shortly.
Ukraine, among other things, a venturi, the exhaust of the missile, and a casing of the engine of a 9M38 series Buk missile were found. You will see two numbers on the side of the venturi found, a handwritten and a hand engraved. On the casing, you will see the number 9 Cyrillic Delta 131-886-9032. The JIT investigation to date has yielded the following about the significance of this number. 9 Cyrillic Delta 131 relates to the number of the 9M38 or 9M38M1 missile engines. The number 8 is the code of the manufacturer, being the Dolgoprudny Research and Manufacturing Enterprise in Moscow. The number 86 indicates the year of production, which is 1986. And the number 9032 is the unique identification number of the specific missile engine.
For your information, these are the actual venturi and casing. The animation showed the numbers on the venturi and the casing. We urgently appeal to everyone, anywhere in the world, who can give the JIT more information about the following. Do you recognise the handwriting of the number on the venturi? Do you have information about the numbers on the venturi and the casing? or do you know someone who can tell us what these numbers mean? Are you or do you know someone with information about the missile in which these parts have been placed and to which unit this missile was delivered? If you have answers to any of these questions about the Venturi or casing, we urgently ask you to contact the JIT. On the website of the JIT, you can read more detailed questions. We understand this is confidential information. I would therefore emphasise once again that all information and informants are treated with the utmost confidentiality by the JIT. Our investigators can speak to you in different languages, including Russian and Ukrainian. I'd now like to give the floor back to Mr. Westerbeck for the conclusion.
Ladies and gentlemen, today the GIT concluded that the Baktilar that was used to shoot down MH17 originated from the 53rd Anti-Aircraft Missile Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces. This observation raises questions, such as the question whether the brigade itself was actively involved in the downing of flight MH17 on the 17th of July 2014. It is an important question which the GIT is still investigating. So far, the authorities of the Russian Federation did not report to the GIT that a buck of the 53rd Brigade was used in eastern Ukraine and that this was used to down flight MH17. On the 15th of October 2014, we already asked the Russian authorities to provide us with all the information that may be important for truth-finding based on Resolution 2166 of the UN Security Council. Because the GIT no longer wants to turn exclusively to the Russian authorities to obtain information on this topic, we also call today, by means of the media, in the help of the public to answer questions about control and use of the Baktila, as well as about the missile that was launched with that TILA. On behalf of the GIT, I would like to thank all of you for your presence here today. We would now, as stated, like to give you the opportunity to ask questions. We will clarify the way in which we will do that. Please stand up if you want to ask a question. Wait for the microphone to arrive to make sure that everybody can hear you. Please state the medium you represent and your name, and then you can ask questions. You can ask questions to anybody who is behind this table, so the GIT members, and questions will be answered in English as far as possible. After this plenary questions, you will have the opportunity for one-to-one interviews with representatives of these people that you see behind the table of the 5 GIT countries. Obviously, you can also shoot your footage of the casing and the Venturi you see on the table. Do you have any questions? And please raise your hand and stand up. Paul Eldering, Telegraph. I have a question for Mr. Westerbeke. There were 100 people involved. How many are left of these 100 people? And are these people that have Russian nationality? In my presentation, I already indicated that indeed over the past period we've received a lot of additional information and have found such information about a group that started with about 100 individuals, as we've indicated 18 months ago. It has now been reduced to about a few dozens. I will not address that in detail. Indeed, the people that we are observing on the location where everything happened, and you can understand that this also reflects on the background of these people. Next question.
Mr. Westerbeek, can you tell me when this will go to court and what court this will actually be heard in?
Well, the last question is the answer. As I believe many of you already are aware of, the decision has been made that when we are going to prosecute in a Dutch court. The JIT members together and the JIT countries have decided that that would be the best way to give a follow-up on this investigation. The most posed question to me is, by many people, when are you ready and when are you going to court? And I always give the same answer. Doing an investigation like this is not like building a house. A house you can plan, you know what you exactly need, and you know more or less when you're ready. An investigation like this, you're very responsible. You're very well waiting and looking for all the clues you need, and of course you don't know ahead when you get the information and the proof you need. And happily, in all the years that we've been working, we have gained a lot of proof and a lot of evidence, but we're not ready yet. I can say that we are now entering in the last phase of the investigation. Maybe that's the best way to say it. But when we will be ready is not possible to say at this moment, because still there is a lot of work to do.
Sorry, the man over there. And the grey shirt. Or the brown, sorry.
Gert van Dennekamp, Nieuwsuur.
Gert van Dennekamp, Nieuwsuur, Dutch television.
Ask them concrete what they know about the book transport from Kursk.
Yes, we did. We already asked them quite some weeks ago to inform us and give us every information they can give about the 53 Brigade and the book Taylor, which has been used. Of course, we already asked at the beginning of this investigation to give us every information that is important, and this is maybe the most important information they could have given us, but they did not. Today we presented them also all the information about the casing and the Venturi, and asked them today to give us everything they know about these two items.
The woman.
Dag, Nathalie Ruiten van de Volkskrant.
Natalie Raatje of the national newspaper Volkskrant. I have a question for you. Have you tried to ask these people to be interviewed, to request interrogations of these people? If you specifically know who those people are, can you not have a conversation with them? Can you not question them? As you saw, today we first presented this conclusion, and this is the time where we can focus on this part of the investigation in more detail. And we do have many questions left. Who exactly are the individuals involved? We asked that question, so this is just the beginning to get better insight into all the individuals that are responsible, that were involved in this bakteler, that have more information, that were in the line of command. And once we get more information, the next step can happen, and that is interviewing, interrogating, questioning people, taking their statements, but first things first. Fons Lambie, Mr. Westerbeek, do you believe that Russia is failing us with the provision of this information? Do you believe they cooperate sufficiently with the investigation? And then further question is, if people do contact you, could they perhaps look at a reduction of their punishment or penalties? Well, first question. I observe that we did not receive essential information. This means the following. Some steps must be taken quickly. We asked again for more information, and I'm curious to learn whether we get this information or not. But the fact that we did not receive the information is incorrect. As far as your second question is concerned, yes. We asked for more information all along when we asked for witnesses. We do offer witness protection in all of the countries included in the JIT. And if they have concerns for their safety now or in the future, we do have witness protection systems available to them, programs available to them. So we have many ways available available to us to guarantee witness protection. So we can make sure they can move on safely.
For?
Ukrainian officials, what do you know about the conclusions that they had just presented about the involvement of the 53rd Brigade, and what can you tell us about trying to solve this case?
Дякую. Ми повністю підтримуємо висновок, який зробила спільна слідча група про причетність ракетного комплексу БУК до 53-ї бригади Збройних сил Російської Федерації. Сьогодні під час презентації ми показали, мені здається, достатньо переконливі докази цього.
Thank you very much for this question. So we totally support the conclusion made by JIT that the 53rd Brigade was involved into the transportation of book teller.
Okay, next question, please. Links achter, NOS.
Ja, Martijn Bink van de NOS.
Yes, Martijn Bink of NOS. A question to Mr. Westerbeke. 2 years ago, the investigation collective Billingcat also pointed at the 53rd Division. Everything you've shown us today is already incorporated in their conclusions. Is the conclusion that I draw is it right that it takes you very long to find out and to get witnesses to confirm who are part of that division? I understand your question clearly, and I think more people feel like that. We were often faced with the fact that as an investigation team we publish matters of which people say, well, it was already known because you could see it on the internet. I believe that Mr. Paulussen has indicated so in his presentation. What we have to do is to compile a file that will eventually stand up in court. It means that we have a different level of evidence that we have to provide, and we have to have our own independent criminal investigations to assess these conclusions. We can only publish them if there's no doubt whatsoever. It took quite a while, it took a lot of time, but it also means that if you haven't drawn that conclusion, that you cannot ask questions based on investigations results that you haven't assessed. It's a continuous dilemma that we have as an investigating team. But please accept on my behalf that the entire team has made every effort in the past few years to make sure that everything that's required is available. But it's we've already indicated that it's a very complicated investigation. These are the facts. We will not hide behind these facts. But it also means that at a later time we can only publish such results. I would like to move on to the last question, if there is a question. The lady over there, please.
From the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. Given that we're about to mark the 4th year anniversary and the pleas for information today almost start sounding a little desperate, I understand this is so complex and so difficult, but as the time goes on, surely the chances of getting witnesses of people who can actually say anything are going to be slimmer and slimmer. Do you get to a point where you say, we're not going to get anything more?
The question is for?
Mr. Westerbeke.
Westerbeke.
Well, it's, first of all, sorry that we sound desperate, because we are not desperate. We are progressing in our investigation in a good way, and we are very confident that we are going to finish this investigation in a good way. I think that the fact that we are asking for this information now also shows that we're entering the next phase of the investigation, which is really now progressing towards the people who were responsible. And a lot of our work in the last years have been all the forensic work and all the work around the wiretaps, everything we found on the internet, and now we are narrowing down to finding the perpetrators. So see this as a confident call for the next phase.
The lady on the back. And you have one question.
Joya de Boer, Hart van Nederland.
Joya de Boer, Hart van Nederland. Mr. Westerbeke, I wondered. You just said we think it's not correct that the Russians did not provide us with the information that was important. We also heard that the bereaved published something in the Russian press as an emergency call for information. Do they know this information? They didn't know the information that we were publishing today. Of course, we informed them that we would publish information today, as we've informed the media, and they were able to follow it on the live stream today. So they did not know the specific information. However, they do have all the information that's available on the internet in many ways, and they've drawn their own conclusions. And I do understand the call that they put out today.
It's finished. Wait a minute, sorry.
Thank you. Question to Mr. Westerbeek. My name is Pavel Kanidin. I'm from Novaya Gazeta. Nice to meet you again. And follow-up question. I would like to ask you, do you have other evidence besides photo and video? Maybe some satellites, images, and etc., etc.?
Well, as we have pointed out in the animation, we have more proof and more information to support the conclusion of today about the book Taylor. But we're not going to tell what it is, because that we keep in our dossier, and because we don't want to tell everything we know, because then we are opening our cards to the other side, and we're not going to do that.
Ik wil bij deze het officiële gedeelte af.
This ends the official part of this press conference. Thank you very much for your presence here today to listen to what we had to share. If you have any questions, requests, please step forward and we'll make sure you get your answers.